you were asked to describe the quintessential knight, how would you? Would you imagine a handsome warrior in shining armor saving a fair maiden? Or would you describe a massive hulk shrouded in thick steel, lumbering into battle on a mighty steed? Present-day media frequently displays medieval warriors in these ridiculous and often contradictory ways. On the one end, knights are displayed as having the utmost charm and grace, living only for duty, home, and fair maidens.
I will end this folly.
When?
Tomorrow when Gawain comes, I'll meet him.
And then Arthur.
I'll send him a challenge which he cannot refuse.
You'll let nothing stop you.
Not even the fires of hell.
Touching. Once in battle, however, they turn into colossal brutes covered in armor, bashing away at each other until someone falls over. They lose all semblance of the skill and grace that they previously had displayed.
Knightly combat has been envisioned kind of as this sort of lumbering, tin-clad combatants swinging swords at each other with great force, but not necessarily an awful lot of finesse.
For a long time, this was how we envisioned knights because we knew very little about them. This started to change in recent decades when historians began to discover ancient training manuscripts of the medieval age. These uncovered manuals exposed a starkly different reality from the one media portrayed. Knights and medieval warriors were deadly fighters, but the grace and skill at winning the hearts of maidens was increased twofold when they applied their martial skill. The manuscripts reveal that knights were trained to the utmost degree, learning to wield a variety of weapons in various scenarios. They attacked with determination and precision, studying from the detailed pages of the manuscripts themselves.
The manuscripts are beautifully illustrated in many cases, so they use both word and image to convey the techniques of combat, which makes a lot of sense. It's very hard to get the message across about a physical technique purely from the written word. So they use illustrations as part of it. And some of these manuscripts are sumptuous. They must have been prepared for extremely rich clients. And they're really objects of art in their own right, as well as concrete documentation of the fighting techniques of medieval knights and Renaissance gentlemen. So they're in multiple colors. Some of them have gold highlights. There are manuscripts that are 4 times the size of a typical modern book page, beautifully calligraphed with lovely fancy calligraphy of the period. Specialist scribes have been commissioned to make these manuscripts really top-end, beautiful art objects in their own right. And when you actually dig through them, read word for word what they're describing, look at the images, walk through the techniques as they're being described, you realize that this is real battlefield stuff. You can, in fact, connect a lot of the techniques from the original manuscripts with the techniques of living martial arts, particularly from East Asia, where a lot of the traditional martial arts survived into the modern period in a way that the European martial arts did not.
The plant of the Worcester Pressed Steel Company at Worcester, Massachusetts, there stands a knight in armor. The medieval figure tops this otherwise modern structure for good reason. For to Worcester Pressed Steel's president, John Woodman Higgins, that suit of armor, worn by the fighting man of centuries ago, represents something he'd like to see brought back to life.
The Higgins Armory Museum was a trailblazer in the growing field of European martial arts study and held numerous unique events to showcase the techniques that the world had forgotten. Others came to follow, and with the technological advances of the late 20th century, numerous organizations sprung up around the world, all dedicated to restoring this lost art. The Higgins Armory remained on the cutting edge through the Higgins Armory Sword Guild, an association founded in 1999 by 2 of the foremost experts in the field, Geoffrey Forgang and Patrick Pugliese. the Guild had exclusive ability to interact with the leading scholars, original copies of the manuscripts, and of course, the ancient weapons themselves.
The Higgins Armory was always a very special place. It was not like other museums, I think very dynamic, very hands-on, very experimental, willing to try new things. And the swordplay program really was one of the gems in the crown of the Higgins during its final years. So we had a group that did primary research into the original texts. That primary research had the advantage of some of the most important scholars in the field being part of the group, although it was really collegial. A whole bunch of different people from different walks of life took part in it, so it was not at all hierarchical, but there was a lot of knowledge in it. And of course we had the advantage of people in the group who were capable of reading the original material and translating it specifically for making it accessible to our reading group. So at the Higgins, we saw this material before anybody else, certainly in the English-speaking world, saw it. So we were kind of at the front line at the research level. We also had a very wide range of very engaging demonstrations. The audiences to the Higgins really loved the material.
This DVD will present an introduction into the concepts of European martial arts and how they are practiced in the modern world. Concepts such as footwork, strikes, and guards are presented for a variety of weapons, along with an introduction on the weapons themselves. These weapons are cut and thrust swords, rapiers, daggers in wrestling, and staff weapons. However, we begin by introducing the fundamental concepts to combat in general.